United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has urged Russia to cooperate with an investigation by the International Criminal Court. Well, during his visit to Ukraine this week, Guterres decried the absurdity of war in the 21st century and called for justice. Let's talk about his trip to both Kyiv and Moscow this week with University of Johannesburg's Professor of Public International Law, Hennie Strydom. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program. So Antonio Guterres has wrapped up his trip. He met with Russia's Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. Yesterday he was in Kyiv with Volodymyr Zelensky. Was this trip a success?
Well, we have to see where that will in fact be a success. We must take into account that the main purpose of his visit was humanitarian. Getting civilians out of conflict areas and so on. I think that was the main topic of the discussions because the issue has become serious for the safety of civilians and so on, those who want to leave the area. And I think it's paramount that there is action taken, and he has promised action by the United Nations in getting the civilians out, but he needs the assistance of both the Ukrainian authorities and the Russian authorities.
But how does that progress begin to emerge then when you consider that when he was in Moscow on Tuesday, Vladimir Putin told him that it's not true that Russian forces aren't allowing people to leave the Azovstal steel plant, for example. We're hearing that civilians and fighters are currently encircled, allegedly, by Russian forces, yet Ukraine claims that Russia is making humanitarian corridors unworkable.
Those allegations have been made before, and it's very difficult from my side to say it's not true or it's true. But what I can say is I don't think that Putin is to be trusted in this matter. He has lied on many other instances in the past. Most importantly, when he denied that he planned any military invasion of Ukraine. In public and to world leaders, and which he eventually did. So I think what we get from news reporting is that civilians have difficulties in getting out of certain areas, and allegations have been made that there's sort of transfers have been blocked or made difficult by Russian forces. So I think we should take this seriously and see how the United Nations is going to solve this problem, because it is indeed a tricky one.
As affected as Guterres was, as he toured many of the war-ravaged parts of Ukraine, including Bucha, where a few weeks ago there were those bodies of civilians, we were told, found with their hands bound behind their backs. And I want to take that then, the reaction that he had, and pair it or compare it to what Ukraine had criticized when his trip was announced. They said that they felt that he, in fact, should have been to Ukraine before traveling to Moscow in order to get a clear picture of where things are. Do you think that would have made any material difference in the outcomes of his visit?
I don't think so. I think it's decided behind closed doors where he will go to first and where he will go to second in circumstances of this kind. But eventually what matters is what he has established on both sides and what he brings home to the United Nations. That is the important part of it. So I think these issues you just mentioned are not the material to the whole visit and to what may transpire after that.
How should the United Nations as a whole proceed with the Russia-Ukraine situation?
The United Nations is in a very difficult position, and I think it has lost a lot of support and sympathy, among many people and countries maybe as well. The problem, first of all, is that the Security Council cannot act because Russia has the veto power, and it will block any action suggested or mentioned or decided upon by the Security Council. So virtually the Security Council is out of the picture. The matter can then be transferred to the General Assembly of the United Nations, which can then act under it's a weak organization as far as that is concerned. I'm talking about the General Assembly. So if the Security Council cannot act and the General Assembly has limited powers, then it's difficult for the United Nations to have any concrete effect on the ground. And that is why the whole emphasis has shifted to what individual countries are doing, like the United States of America, United Kingdom, and to a limited extent also European Union via NATO.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where I think the decisive actions can and maybe will be taken. And at this point in time, it's uncertain how far they will go with this conflict.
Guterres then urged Russia to cooperate with the International Criminal Court that's looking into, or will soon begin to look into, more closely a growing list of alleged war crimes that are said to have been committed by Russian forces. Do you think that anything will actually turn on that as far as Russia's cooperation?
I don't think Russia will give cooperation, but I think what is important as far as these investigations are concerned, and I think it's very, very significant to take into account that 41 states referred the potential commission of war crimes to the International Criminal Court. And that is a show of concern and support for investigations to go on. Secondly, there are many states now gathering evidence outside what the prosecutor of the ICC is doing. So from various sources, we might get evidence pointing to what has actually gone on and who may be responsible for that. But that's only one part of international criminal justice.
Mm-hmm.
The difficult question is how to apprehend those responsible and to bring them before the ICC. And that's an entirely different matter. But I can also say we should not have any sort of hope that Putin will appear before that court and will face justice.
The other criticism has been that the Ukrainians aren't being held equally accountable, according to Moscow, for alleged human rights offenses and war crimes they say the Ukrainians have committed in the east, in the Donbas region, or the separatist regions, shall we say. Has Ukraine been held accountable or scrutinized enough for possible violence and offenses committed?
I know of no international organization to whom any of those alleged transgressions have been submitted for investigation. And I do not gather from that there is concrete evidence on the Russian side that those atrocities were in fact committed, to the extent alleged. We must not forget that Russia was a party or a party member of the United Nations Human Rights Council. So he had ample opportunity to submit those atrocities to the Council for an investigation.
All
and
right.
there are other organizations as well, and it hasn't done so. So that is the issue that we are facing at this point in time. But the important thing about the ICC investigation is that, of course, if atrocities were committed, that will be part of the investigation that the prosecutor will undertake.
Okay.
So it's not only concentrating on Russian atrocities.
Professor Hennie Strydom, thank you so much for your time.